4 couples are partying together. Next morning, Alice is making breakfast. Suddenly, as she and her husband, Jack, are talking, there is a small earthquake. Alice asks Jack if it was an explosion or what was it. He does not answer. She says she can keep a secret, but he leaves for work in his car like the other men. The men go to work at the Victory Project, as the ladies do the home chores. Alice gets on the bus and goes for her ballet class. At the ballet class, their teacher Shelley arrives and informs them that the Victory Project has employed a new employee named Bill Johnson, and she has invited his wife, Violet, to join them. The ladies welcome Violet. The class begins. After class, Bunny tells Alice that she knew Margaret wasn't in class because she's seen Dr. Collins in her house again. Bunny says she's surprised Ted still has a job. As they are gossiping, men in red jumpsuits from the Victory Project are moving stuff into Violet's new house. As Alice is drying the clothes, she sees Margaret holding a plane and dreaming, closing her eyes. Alice is surprised when she finds most of the eggs empty when she's cooking, like a glitch. As Jack returns home from work, Alice greets him with a kiss and hands him a drink, asks him about his day, and they have sex. As Alice is relaxing with Bunny and Violet, she complains about a certain tune being stuck in her head, and suddenly she hears a man humming it in her head. When she tells the ladies about it, Violet says it was probably a tune she got from her children. But Alice says she doesn't have children. As the ladies are talking about children, Alice hears the hum again. All the employees and their families party at Frank's place. As Shelley is welcoming them, Margaret asks everyone why they're there. Ted, her husband, pulls her back and tells her they need to leave. Frank steps in and says that the couple's having a tough time, but she asked a good question. He says they are there to mine the gem of limitless value. They're there to change the world. He thanks the wives, saying the men ask for many things, along with discretion about their work. But the wives also play an important role. After Frank's speech, Alice notices that Jack is not around and goes looking for him. Then she stumbles upon Margaret and Ted. Margaret tells her that they are hiding her in there. Ted asks Alice to give them a minute, and she'll be fine. Margaret says she is not fine, and she doesn't sleep since she has bad dreams. Ted pulls the curtains to cut their conversation. Alice finds Jack in a room, and they begin to get cozy. Frank enters the room and sees what they're doing. Alice sees him and is surprised, but he leaves. As Alice is chilling with Bunny, they talk about how Margaret lost it at the party. Alice says that she's going through something. Bunny says she's bringing it on to herself because she had taken her son into the desert, which is prohibited to enter as it's dangerous. Bunny says she shouldn't have gone there and her son didn't come back. And she says they took her son to punish her. Peg asks the ladies what do they feel the men are working out there. She says she knows that they are working on development of progressive materials, but her husband says that they are making weapons underground. But Bunny stops her, saying that they should support their husbands who save the world. Alice gets nightmares. Jack goes to office, and she gets back to her routine. She takes the bus. She sees a plane that crashes into the mountains. She asks the driver to turn towards the crash so that they can check for survivors. But the driver outright refuses, saying that's not his route, and they should stay where it is safe and not go into the desert, which is dangerous and restricted. She tells him to stop, and she walks towards the crash site, ignoring the warning signs in the desert. She climbs a mountain, gets to a dome, which is the Victory Project headquarters, and cries for help. She touches the glass on the dome, and she faints. Alice wakes up at home to Jack making dinner. She asks him how did she get there. He says she was asleep when he got home. She is all confused. He cheers her up and gets back to cooking. The next day, Jack leaves for work, and she gets to her chores. As she's cleaning the glass, the wall suddenly closes in on her and squashes her. But suddenly, in a blink of an eye, it all goes away and she's fine. She's scared and confused about what's happening. The phone rings. She answers it. It's Margaret. Margaret asks her if she went out there and if she's seen it. Margaret tells her that they are lying to them, and no one asks any questions. and that they can't stay there anymore, and that she's not crazy. But Alice tells her to stop being ridiculous and hangs up the phone. At ballet class, as all the ladies are dancing, Alice suddenly stops dancing and glares at the mirror. As she goes closer, she sees Margaret's reflection in the mirror. Margaret begins banging her head on the mirror. The mirror cracks and Alice screams. She realizes that it was a vision as Margaret disappears. Everyone in class is stunned and stares at her. She panics and leaves the class in a jiffy. Alice rushes to Margaret's house and sees her standing on the roof. Margaret slits her throat and falls from the roof. Dumbstruck, Alice tries to rush towards her, but men wearing red jumpsuits catch her and pull her away as she struggles trying to help Margaret. Later, she tells Jack all about what happened. Jack gaslights her, saying, "Margaret just fell from the roof when she was cleaning the windows and Ted is with her at the hospital now." Alice tells him that she feels guilty because Margaret asked her for help before taking this step, saying that she knew something that they didn't want her to know and they're coming after her. Alice says she feels guilty because she couldn't save her friend. And she asks Jack, why are they lying about what happened and what are they hiding? Jack doesn't answer her. She asks him what does he do at the Victory Project. He says she knows that he is a technical engineer. Alice says she knows, but she asks him what the Victory Project is about. And what do they mean when they say progressive material? Jack tells her that they are not allowed to discuss their jobs to others. She tells him Margaret could be right, but Jack has an outburst and tells Alice to shut up. Jack tells her that they could lose this perfect life if she doesn't get a hold of herself. As Alice is watching TV, she feels like she is drowning, but she wakes up and realizes she is near the glass window. As Alice is wrapping some food, she suddenly wraps the cling wrap around her face, almost choking herself. But she gets back to her senses and tears it off. Dr. Collins comes to have a look at Alice. He says she has exhaustion and asks her if she is stressed. Jack says she witnessed Margaret's fall. Alice says that she just didn't fall, but she slit her throat and jumped. Dr. Collins tells her that witnessing a traumatic event can lead to distorted memories and nightmares. Dr. Collins says he can prescribe some medication, but she says she doesn't need it. Then she sees Margaret's file in his suitcase termed as security risk. Jack tells Dr. Collins that she does not need medication. Alice asks the doctor what he did to Margaret and how did she recover. He says she needed psychological and physical help, and because of her Ted lost his job, and he was removed from the Victory Project. Doctor tells Jack to walk him out, and he forgets his suitcase there. Alice takes his suitcase and steals Margaret's file and returns the suitcase back to him. She reads Margaret's file and then burns it. She gets a bad vision as she's in the bathtub and wakes up with a jolt. Jack comes in and shows her a dress he got her for the party. Out of the blue, he asks her if she wants to have a baby. She is stunned and doesn't answer, but he tells her to think about it. At the party, they meet the other couples who welcome them. Shelley comes to check up on Alice, and Alice thanks her for the invite. A woman performs at the party who reminds Alice of the nightmares she has. She asks Jack if they can leave, but he tells her to wait and have another drink. Frank invites Jack on stage and promotes him to the senior advisory board, and he makes Jack dance. Alice rushes to the washroom where she has a panic attack. Bunny goes to check up on her, and she tells Bunny they need to get out of there and Margaret was telling the truth. Alice tells her how Margaret died and says they're lying about everything. She tells her about what she witnessed at the dome. Bunny is shocked and tells Alice that she needs to get a grip of herself, as her husband is out there having the best day of his life, and she is here, ruining it. Bunny says that she's acting exactly like Margaret and leaves. Jack tells Alice that he will be heading the extract operation, which is the high security clearance. Jack and Alice host a party at home. The other couples ask if Frank is coming. Frank walks in with Shelley. They ask Jack how did he get Frank to come to the party. He says Alice did it. As Alice is in the kitchen preparing food, Frank goes to her and says he is sorry that Bunny did not believe her and reminds her that she didn't believe Margaret. So, why should anyone believe her? He says he was waiting for someone to challenge him like how she did, and hopes she keeps going. On the table, Alice keeps asking everyone questions about where they are from, how they met their partner, and where they went for their honeymoon. Most of the time, couples had similar repetitive answers, which was very surprising because there can't be so many coincidences. Alice accuses Frank of controlling them and keeping them trapped there. Frank retaliates, saying that Alice put their lives in danger by going to the prohibited headquarters in the desert. She continues to accuse Frank of using them, and Shelley loses it and tells Alice that she is behaving like a spoilt brat and ruining what they are trying to build. She leaves and everyone follows her out. Frank tells her that he expected more from her and wishes her luck, and calls Jack to talk to him as he walks out the door. Jack returns and asks her, why was she trying to sabotage him? She says she wasn't doing that, and she loves him. She begs for his understanding. She tells him that she loves him more than the Victory Project, and she trusts him. But she doesn't trust Frank. She wants to leave this place. She tells him that any place would be better as long as they're together. He says okay, and she says they need to leave tonight. She packs everything, gets in the car, and tells him to drive. But he apologizes, saying he loves her, and that he tried so many ways to stop this from happening. But suddenly the men in the red jumpsuit get there, and Alice tells him to drive. But he doesn't, and he just keeps on saying sorry. They grab Alice. She says that she is better. But they don't stop pulling her and take her away. She screams that they are hurting her, but Jack feels helpless and starts crying. They take Alice, tie her up, and give her electroshock treatment, and she goes back to memories of her and Jack together in the real world, where Alice was a doctor who was returning late from her surgery. Jobless Jack tries to get close to her, but she stops him, saying that she just completed a 30-hour shift and has to be back in 6 hours, and she's extremely tired and needs sleep. Jack brings Alice back home, and Bunny welcomes her with open arms. Alice gets on with her routine. Jack returns from work, and she notices that the song he is humming is the same song that's stuck in her head. That's when the realization hits that her visions are all memories. The Victory Project is keeping Alice in an unreal matrix, as Jack just gets to spend a few hours in the project. But he has to take care of his unconscious wife, who is connected to the program throughout. Back in the project, Alice falls and screams in the kitchen. Jack gets there, and she asks him what did he do, and he says he can explain. She tells him that he stole her life. He says that she worked too much. She says that she loved to work, and he has no right to take her life away from her. He tells her that he gave her this life, and they are lucky to be there, so that they can live the life that they deserve. He says he has to leave every day to make enough money to keep them there. He says they're perfect in there. She reminds him about how, when she went explaining to him, he made her feel like she's crazy. She asked him about the other people, and he tells her that all the men are responsible for their wives. Jack tries to choke her, but she slams a glass into his neck, and Bunny gets there. Frank is informed that Jack is dead. Bunny tells her that she needs to leave, and they are going to kill her in the real world. Because if a man dies here, he dies in reality. Bunny tells her to drive away and go to the headquarters. Alice asks Bunny how does she know all this. Bunny says she chose this as here her kids are alive. As Alice gets out of the house, the people ask her about the blood on her dress and where Jack is, but she keeps walking. The street lights suddenly start shattering. Bunny screams at Alice, telling her to run. She takes Jack's car, but there's some resistance from the men. She tries to drive away, but the men in the red jumpsuits get into cars and chase her. They dash into her car and try to grab her. Dr. Collins tries to drive straight into her from ahead, with the other cars pushing her on either side. But she brakes at the right time, and Collins and two other cars crash into each other. Frank is updated that Collins is dead, and they ask him what should they do if she gets out. But he hangs up. Then Shelley stabs him with a knife, saying it's her turn now. Alice gets to the mountain, but her car gets stuck, so she abandons it and starts running. The men get to her abandoned car and start climbing the mountain on foot as her car blocks the road. She runs towards the headquarters. She gets a vision of Jack that distracts her, but when it's gone, she sees the men running towards her, and she goes towards the glass and she gasps for air in the real world. Thank you guys for watching. I hope y'all liked the video. If you did, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to watch many more such cool recaps. And hit the bell icon too. Bye.